Not going to wait. We'll go ahead and get started, and I'll open Ways and Means Committee. Ask Senator Sullivan to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll go ahead and open a public hearing on House Bill 1068. And is there somebody here to introduce it? If not, mind introducing it, Keith, just from your seat right there. 1068, yes.
Good morning. This is Senator Keith Murphy. I'm introducing House Bill 1068, which taxes certain occupants who have established permanent residences under the Meals and Rooms tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Murphy. I only have one person signed up to speak. It's Mike Summers. If he wants to come up.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Mike Summers, President and CEO of the New Hampshire Lodging and Restaurant Association. Just have a little concern with this because currently under statute has been recognized by the New Hampshire Supreme Court that guests in our hotels are not residents. And so I worry that we open this up, we may start to change that standard. And so that really is my concern with this. I'll share with the committee, this is an article, if I could pass it around. It's an article just kind of outlines the legal argument for the fact that they never become tenants within our hotels. And so just by opening this up, we're concerned that that may change it. Again, I'm not an attorney. I don't pretend to play one on TV, but I'm just concerned, and I would suggest that we take a closer look at that just to be on the safe side.
Thank you. Any questions from the senators? Senator Roosevelt.
Thank you. What problem do you think this bill is trying to address?
Well, interestingly, I think the intent of this is good, and frankly, we wouldn't necessarily be opposed to the intent, which the intent is that under current statute right now, if somebody stays in our hotel for 186 days, they essentially get reimbursed their rooms and meals tax. And the way that mechanism works is the hotel reimburses the guest, and then the state reimburses the business, which is kind of a wrinkle that is a bit painful, but it's not super hard. It's a process. So shortening this to 30 days in the case of where there's an agreement in place is actually fine. We wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that. The real concern I have is just whether or not we're toying with the residency thing, and then do we now start to nudge us closer to becoming more of a tenant relationship, which we clearly do not want to happen.
So what about someone who stays in a hotel for 180 days? Do we reimburse? Do they get reimbursed for their rooms and meals tax, or is it only when you cross the 185 day?
The current standard is that if you were there for 180 days, you pay the rooms and meals tax in full. If you're there for 186 days, then the reimbursement process kicks in. So again, we wouldn't necessarily be opposed to the 30-day change, but we're just worried about the tenancy standard.
Thank you. I guess I share your concern about resident, because I think maybe it opens the door to what other rights residents of New Hampshire have,
Correct.
like for voting or.
Yeah. Again, not an attorney, not even pretending to be one.
Me neither.
Yeah, so I don't know the answer to that question, and that's a little outside my scope of experience, but you can certainly appreciate the point.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the senators? Seeing none. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on House Bill 1068? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on House Bill 1068. We have 9 minutes left. Anybody like to go into executive session and talk about this bill?
Sure.
So I need a motion.
Oh, I'll make it.
So
I
it's
move
been
we go
moved by
into executive
Senator Roosevelt to go to executive
Second.
session. Second by Senator Murphy. We are now in executive session. We'll be in the discussion mode to talk about House Bill 1068. I tend to agree with the people who are concerned about this bill. I think changing the definition of permanent resident might have implications throughout all the other statutes And I think that we probably should take a longer and closer look at this.
Is that a motion for interim study?
So Senator Murphy's made a motion for interim study. It's been seconded by Senator Rosenwald. Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1068? Seeing none, all those in favor of interim study signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Is there a motion for consent?
So moved.
It's been moved by Senator Roosevelt, seconded by Senator Murphy for consent. All those in favor of consent signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And Senator Roosevelt, would you mind taking it out?
I would love to.
Great. I just under executive, I'll just talk. It looks like we're going to have a meeting. We've got several bills that have been assigned to us after the latest House batch of bills that went through. So we'll be meeting on the 15th. And then there's a good chance we're going to meet on the 22nd because I've been asked not to do the 29th because apparently that's school vacation week.
Yes.
And so I've been asked not to meet that week. And the other option would be we push it all the way to May for, I think like one of our deadlines is the 30th. So we have to meet before that.
And
So,
I think that the insurance department is doing a healthcare webinar
Yep.
on the 29th.
yeah, that doesn't concern me so much.
Well,
So
I'd like to
I might
attend.
attend it, but anyway, so just so members know, it looks like the 15th and the 22nd, we will be meeting. The 15th, we're gonna have public hearings on bills on the 22nd. I want to exec everything that's left. Whatever we haven't exec, we will exec on the 22nd. So if you have any amendments you want to bring forward, please get them drafted and ready on bills we've heard. Anything else? Taking motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Been moved by Senator Roosevelt, seconded by Senator Benton to come out of executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. We are in executive session and we are in recess until 9:30. let's try that again. We'll open a public hearing on House Bill 1194. And who's going to speak to introduce the bill? Tom? He's outside the room, but you're welcome to come up and introduce it. And John wants to speak, he can speak afterwards. What do they do with the sign-up sheet? There it is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Ways and Means Committee. I am Representative Tom Schamberg. I represent Merrimack 6, the towns of Wilmot and Sutton, and I serve on the Ways and Means Committee in the House. I'm speaking in favor of House Bill 1194. I'd just like to make a few statements on the impact on the state of New Hampshire. For the state of New Hampshire, House Bill 1194 is a fiscal stability bill. It does not increase taxes. It does not reduce consumer protections. It does not deny insurers reimbursement. It does prevent sudden multi-million-dollar hits to the state revenues. House Bill 1194 sets out a very specific mechanical process. This bill strictly controls the timing. Overall, this bill protects the general fund from large revenue swings. It improves budget predictability, keeps policyholder protections fully funded, and it avoids the need for emergency fiscal adjustments following any insurer insolvencies. The bottom line is that this $10 million cap in House Bill 1194 smooths the impacts on state revenue while ensuring insurers are repaid, just not all at once. I respectfully urge your concurrence on approving House Bill 1194.
Questions from the committee? I just have one. The amendment you've seen, originally the House had looked at a 7-year span for the assessment. In the amendment, it expands it to 10. Are you okay with that?
I am okay. Mr. Chairman's okay also with it,
Well, he's going to come up next.
hopefully.
So,
Thank you.
Representative Jinigian.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Representative John Jinigian, representing Rockingham 25, which is Salem. I assume that fine representative before me introduced the bill, so
He introduced the basic bill, was talking about the bill, what it does, and
Right.
the amendment that's going to be introduced.
and I've had a brief look at that amendment. It seems good, and I like the fact that the insurance department and the industry have come to an agreement on it. So other than that, I would be for it.
Great. Questions from the committee? So, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Representative Schomburg. When Ways and Means originally passed this bill in the House, it was a 7-year window. We've extended that out to a 10-year window, or the amendment extends it out to a 10-year window to reduce the impact and have it be smaller over a longer period of time. Are you okay with that?
I am. Originally, my understanding was the insurance department didn't want the 10-year, but they seem like they're resolved that and they're okay with it. So that sounds good to me.
Great. Thank you. Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
John. Next up is Henry Vayu.
I would actually defer to the department to go up to explain the amendment, and then I'll go. I think that'd be helpful.
I'm sorry, the only amendment I have yours.
Well, there should be two amendments. There's Amendment 1301. You guys have that in front of you? Has it been delivered?
No,
Sorry. Let's pass it out.
I
But I
don't.
think Henry wants to speak to the amendment, not to the original underlying bill. You can have mine. I already have a copy.
It's changing.
So Department of Insurance, why don't you come on up?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, DJ Betancourt. I have the pleasure of serving as the Commissioner of the New Hampshire Insurance Department. I'm joined by our Deputy Commissioner, Keith Nyan. So this is a department initiative, and I will start by saying, some of you may know that I'm an old baseball player, and I've tried to explain this concept. I think we're coming up on 10, 12 times, Keith. And my batting average on making this clear and straightforward is below the Mendoza line. So I'm going to do my best to learn from past mistakes, but have Keith clean up anything I don't get quite right. This is a pretty dense and complicated concept that we're getting at here, but we'll start with the basics. When an insurer goes insolvent, what happens to the policyholders who had policies through that carrier? That's the fundamental question. What comes into play is something called the guarantee fund. The guarantee fund is the financial backstop when an insurer goes insolvent, so that the consumers who have policies, again, with that carrier, aren't completely left out to dry when they have to file claims, or when they've filed claims, or when they should get back some of the premium that they've contributed in to a product that they're now no longer going to have the benefit of accessing if they need it. So who makes up, or what contributes into the guarantee fund? Well, every state in the country has a guarantee fund, and it's overseen by each state having a guarantee fund association that oversees that fund. So how it works is, when you're a carrier, you're going to write in a state, you must become a member of that state's guarantee association. When an insurer goes insolvent, what the guarantee association will do is assess each of the carriers, whatever the calculation is. Those monies go into the fund, the guarantee fund, that will then pay out to the policyholders who are impacted by the insurer insolvency. So in essence, the carriers who are solvent and members of this association, which they are required to be, will front the money that will help the consumers with the insurer that's going bankrupt. In New Hampshire, after the carriers front the money, what they will then do is get a credit on their insurance premium tax liability to make them whole. So they'll be reimbursed for fronting the money initially. Now, just last year, within the last 2 years, we had a very large company go insolvent. It was called Colorado Bankers Life. Very, very large life and annuities company. The CEO of that company was a crook. He's in federal prison right now. He pillaged the company, caused a lot of damage. Despite the fact that the name of the company is Colorado Bankers Life, it was actually a North Carolina domestic insurer. Makes it even more complicated. As this was going on, as Colorado Bankers Life was going through the process of insolvency, you all were trying to put a state budget together. And I and Amy and some others in our department were before the committee of conference for the state budget saying, we're doing our best to give you as accurate a revenue prediction of IPT as we possibly can, but we've got this issue out here with this insolvency that could generate companies taking credits on their insurance premium tax liability that could impact the amount of revenue that the IPT is going to bring in. And needless to say, that was a very, very difficult exercise and a difficult thing for the members of that committee of conference to hear as they're trying to put together a very difficult state budget. So my commitment to them at the time was I was going to look at how we did this, how we set up our guarantee fund, the association process, the credits, and try to bring forward something that would bring more structure and predictability to how this process works. And so that's what we endeavor to do. And we've taken quite a few detours and the long way around. The House was unbelievably patient and thorough when we went through this process with them. Ultimately, there was still some work for us to do after it had passed the House. We got together with industry, with Mr. Vayu and ACLI, and we were able to come up with a compromise which is represented in the amendment that you have before you. So I'll stop there. I think I did all right.
Very well.
I'm going to quit while I'm ahead, and I'll have Keith just very quickly walk you through the basics of the amendment.
So the most fundamental, there are two fundamental changes in the amendment to the bill as you have before you. The biggest change is the bill as before you today, not the amendment, actually proposes a $10 million cap, that if this $10 million cap is exceeded, it would trigger a new arrangement of 7 years, and I think it's 14.28% on how these credits would be assessed or claimed over time. We quickly realized after leaving House Ways and Means that it was nearly impossible to administer in a manner that would benefit the taxpayers as well as industry in the way that we presented it to House Ways and Means. Ultimately, it led to, as the commissioner mentioned, we'll call it a compromise, but it was more than that. It was more of a meeting of the minds in which we can eliminate the $10 million cap and actually change what is in current statute of claiming the assessments over a 5-year period at 20% to a 10-year period and 10%. And what that does is it greatly streamlines the ease at which we can implement this. It also allows the state to soften to a greater extent what any impact on the insurance premium tax, the IPT, could be in any given year from 20% to 10%. Those are the fundamental changes. I feel confident in saying that it benefits both the taxpayers and the industry in a manner that we hadn't forecasted when we finished with House Ways and Means.
And I would add that, again, I think the other beneficiary is future legislators who will be sitting in on those difficult budget negotiations, having greater predictability in what the IPT is going to bring in if you should have one of these large insurance carrier insolvencies going on in the background at the same time. So I think we'll stop there and see how many questions we've generated.
So first off, thank you for testifying, and thank you for the extra $27 million so far this year for coming out of the insurance department. Very much appreciate it.
We can talk about that later too. All good stuff.
Senator
but-
Roosevelt.
Thank you. Says to me that insurance premiums are going up, which is not a good thing.
There is certainly some of that, but there's all sorts of nuances. Insurance premiums going up, not what we want to see, of course,
Right.
but there are some other factors going on driving that number that are very, very positive.
So my question is, in this amendment's removal of the $10 million aggregate yearly cap, do we ever exceed that? Does removing that cap expose the taxpayers to any particular additional liability?
Go ahead, Keith.
Senator, it does not.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the cap was a concept that the department introduced in its original bill. That original bill didn't make its way too far through House Ways and Means because it created too many burdens in reaching essentially that cap. The short answer is eliminating the cap doesn't negatively impact the revenues.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions from the committee?
Go on.
So,
Thank you, and thank you for taking my question. You talked about that Colorado-based company that went insolvent, but how often are these insurance companies actually going insolvent?
So insurance companies go insolvent, not every day, but often. But those companies are often incredibly small. So they don't ever reach the impact that you would see with a very large company, such as was the case with Colorado Bankers Life. How often an insurer of that size goes insolvent, I would classify it as rare. Rare to very rare. But as I said, because the Colorado Bankers Life incident took place just at the worst possible time for this state, it gave rise to us taking this back and considering, this should be looked at again and considering how we might be able to do it better. Again, with the goal being towards greater predictability, greater structure with how the companies take these credits, which we don't have right now.
Follow? So, just for my curiosity, you're saying these companies almost every day there's an insurance company?
I wouldn't
going
say
into
that, but my
insolvent?
point is the vast majority of insurance solvencies you see are companies that are so small, it's a blip on the map. You know,
Yeah, I would
you know,
say,
is that fair? Amy, how many, do you know how
Senator
many
Fenton, there are
properties
actually
you have?
carriers that don't write a large book of business. They don't have the strength of reserves that these larger companies do. Those are the kinds that tend to become insolvent. This is the only large insolvency we've seen in 30 years. It is incredibly rare. Those smaller companies, if they are assessed, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars, not millions of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's very small.
Thank you.
So it's that 20-year, 30-year period, I think, is what kind of drives it.
And Amy raised a good point behind me. Amy runs our tax division at the department. Remember that in this context, we're purely talking about life insurers, health insurers, those types of things, and so that makes it even more rare.
The ones you don't want to go insolvent.
We certainly don't. And let me say too that each state takes their responsibility to monitor the oversight of the solvency of these companies incredibly seriously. Our team is phenomenal, as Keith mentioned. We've not had a domestic insurer in New Hampshire go insolvent since the early to mid 90s, which is a real accomplishment on that team's part. You know, and again, making it complicated, Colorado Bankers Life was actually domiciled by North Carolina, so it was their responsibility to oversee the solvency of it, and they do a great job. In this particular case, you had criminality that came into account, and they did a fine job of covering up their criminality for a time before, of course, the Ponzi scheme always ultimately blows up at some point, and it did. So I didn't want to throw any shade at my counterparts in North Carolina. They did the very, very best that they could and do a good job. But this was a really lousy incident, and fortunately, is also incredibly, incredibly rare that you have malfeasance leading to the insolvency.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none?
Thank you,
Thank you,
Senator.
Commissioner.
Thank you, members of the committee. Appreciate you.
Commissioner, actually, there's one thing. The amendment that was drafted was again drafted between yourself, the prime sponsors, and the insurance industries, and everybody's in agreement with those.
That's correct.
Thank you.
That's my understanding. Yep.
Henry, do you want to speak about the amendment? Come on, introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Henry Vayu, and I'm here on behalf of the American Council of Life Insurers, which I guess, as the commissioner described, are the companies that front the money into the assessment when an insurer goes insolvent. And what this bill addresses, as he described, is the insurance premium tax and the credit that the member companies can take against that tax while they pay into the assessment, making the other policyholders as whole as they can. The original bill, ACLI had an issue with. It was a lot more complicated. The model was a lot more complicated. We worked with the House Ways and Means Committee and the department for a couple of weeks in the House. Didn't get there. This bill was moved forward. We kept working with DJ and his team, which put a lot of time into it. I want to give them credit. And they came up with this much simpler model, which is basically right now, under current law, we get to take a 20% credit against that tax liability over 5 years. And all this bill does is it stretches that credit out 10% over 10 years. So the department and the state realize a benefit in that. And this is only, to your question, Senator Donovan, this is only an instance of a catastrophic. This would only really kick in the instance of a catastrophic insurance failure, a big insurance failure. And the benefit to the state is that the loss of revenue during that time will be much less. It'll be stretched out. You're basically going to take that loss, and instead of realizing that loss of revenue over 5 years, it's going to be stretched out over 10 years. So the state gets the benefit of less revenue loss over that time. It's just stretched out. We lose the time value of money, but in the interest of compromise, we're okay with the amendment. It's a lot better than the original version, and want to thank the department for working with us.
Thank you, Henry. Any questions for Henry? Seeing none, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on House Bill 1194? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on House Bill 1194. I'm going to turn the gavel over to my good friend over here, my vice chairman, while I introduce an amendment. That's the speaker section.
Are you closing that window? Thank you.
All set? For the hearing on the non-germane amendment to HB 1194, Amendment 2026-1237, and introduce the sponsor of the amendment, Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Senator Tim Lang from Senate District 2, and I've been joined by the table with Cooley, who is the compliance officer for the Department of Lottery, or the Lottery Department. Right, your compliance? Is that what
Chief
you-
Compliance Officer.
Chief Compliance Officer. So this amendment you have in front of you stems from a question I asked both the Attorney General and the Lottery Commission. You may or may not know, under current law, we have a blanket statement that says all gambling is illegal unless legalized by the state. And then under that, we have a list of all the things we've legalized. Back in 2019, when I passed HB 480, which was the sports betting bill to allow legalized sports gaming in the state of New Hampshire, I didn't update the statute. And so technically, in one part of our statute, it's not exempt from this provision. In other parts, we've said it's legal. So this is a housekeeping measure to put everything in alignment, that sports betting and sports book wagering in sports books are legal in the state of New Hampshire based on our 287 it's 287. I remember the statute number, 287 statute. And we're just making that exemption in the gambling offenses to say that sports book is legal, is exempt from the overall arching statement of all gambling is illegal in the state of New Hampshire unless authorized by this legislature. I don't know, Cooley, you want to add anything to that?
Yes, good morning. The only thing I would add to that is I think the language as written would make it currently unintended consequence of that would be that all sports betting is exempt from the criminal code. And I think the intent of it, to Senator Lang's point, was that sports betting through the lottery's authorized vendor, and the way that's framed out in 287I is what's exempt from the criminal code. So this language, I totally agree with the description of it as housekeeping makes that clearer.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? See none. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Cooley.
Chair recognizes Representative Schomburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank the Ways and Means Committee. Representative Tom Schamberg, Merrimack 6, towns of Wilmot and Sutton. And I am speaking against this amendment. Adding this amendment to House Bill 1194 turns the bill into a Christmas tree weighed down by an ornament that doesn't belong. House Bill 1194 was introduced to deal with a narrow technical issue, how insurance companies apply assessments credits against taxes. The amendment adds language about criminal gambling and sports betting, which has nothing to do with insurance taxes. That kind of unrelated add-on bill makes the bill harder to understand and harder to pass. When unrelated issues are attached to a bill that's already moving, it looks like an attempt to sneak in policy changes without proper debate. Gambling policy is complex and controversial. It deserves to be debated on its own merits. Attaching it to an insurance tax bill bypasses standard committee review and risks derailing a bill that would otherwise move forward cleanly. This amendment should not be tucked into a tax bill that was never meant to address those issues. Christmas tree bills often slow down or derail legislation because lawmakers who support the original purpose may object to the extra provisions. That risks killing a good bill for the sake of an unrelated issue. If gambling laws need fixing, it should be done openly and separately, not hung on a bill where it doesn't belong. I ask this committee to not add the Christmas tree ornament.
Thank you, Representative. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes Miss Alicia Preston. Welcome back.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Alicia Preston. I represent the New Hampshire Charitable Gaming Operators Association, and we understand the language in this amendment really is just a housekeeping measure to update existing statute, and we are in support of it.
Thank you, Ms. Preston. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this amendment who has not signed up? Seeing none, I will close the hearing and pass the gavel.
Could you give that to?
Hey, we're only 12 minutes late.
We'll again open a public hearing on House Bill 1090. Is the sponsor in the room? There's only one sponsor on this bill. Senator Murphy, would you mind introducing?
Senator Keith Murphy introducing House Bill 1090 relative to meals and rooms taxes.
Thank you. We only have one speaker signed up to speak, and Mr. Summers, come on up.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Mike Summers with New Hampshire Lodging and Restaurant Association. So when this bill was talked about in House Ways and Means, I watched it. We didn't really engage too much on the issue. I then went back and talked to a lot of our members, board of directors, and there is some concern about this rounding of just the tax. So I think the intent of this bill is actually good, and I think we would be supportive of it if it was done on the total bill. So many other states with the retirement of the penny are adopting language that would allow you to essentially round up on or down or whatever on a total gross bill. Where the rub is for a lot of our business members is that some of the POS systems do not appear to be able to program so that it will just round on just the tax on just a meal. So for example, if I'm a hotel and I have a restaurant, I may have to round on just the meal they had in the restaurant or the breakfast, but they wouldn't be rounding on the room rental. So this is going to create some serious frictions, I think, for a lot of businesses. I'm getting some nods from somebody in the industry. So I'm thinking that this might be worthy of some further study. Or if you're going to take action, what we would like to see as the industry is potentially allowing on a gross bill that's the total of the service, goods and services provided, and for the tax round the entirety up. Because I believe now when we file our rooms and meals taxes, we have to round to the nearest dollar anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong. So in that case, this whole piece of it needs to be on a gross bill, not on just the tax and not on just meals, because then I start to wonder if it's a meals and rentals tax, but it only applies on the meals but not the rentals tax. Isn't that a bit of a conflict in the statute in and of itself, just for consistency's sake? But all that aside, the general feedback from everyone that I've talked to in industry is, particularly folks with older POS systems, this would be an almost impossibility. This would be something they would have to essentially rewrite all the code within some of these POS systems to allow for it. Some of the newer ones may be a little more technologically savvy that could handle it, but even that was somewhat of a question because none of them have this capacity built in as we sit here today.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on House Bill 1090? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on House Bill 1090. And we are back on schedule. Next up is House Bill 1102. Representative Jinigian, come on up. We'll get an open a public hearing on House Bill 1102 and recognize the prime sponsor, Representative and Chairman Jinigian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am Representative John Janigian, representing Rockingham 25, which is Salem, and Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. This bill, very, very simple to change here. The research and development tax credit has been an aggregate limit of $7 million over the course of the last 8 years. And for each company, there's a tax cap of $50K, which has been that way for the last 15 years. So this bill basically proposes to increase the aggregate tax limit from 7 to 10 million, and then the individual limit from 50,000 to 100,000. What we have found is that we're hitting that aggregate limit of 7 million. There's a lot of companies that looking for that R&D tax credit. They typically are smaller companies, and we've actually had some life sciences companies come, and I think there's some representatives from the life science industry here, and maybe others who will also speak to this. But it's been a great program. It encourages these small companies, and they typically bring a higher than average salary. The average salary in the life sciences industry, as I understand it, is about 130,000. So by increasing this cap, we encourage more companies to take advantage of this, potentially coming from states like Massachusetts, and building our industries for higher paying jobs. So, and I just want to point out that, some have said in House Ways and Means that, well, you're just dealing with very small companies. This is a small tax cap. How does it help? I would urge the committee to remember that companies like Apple Computer, Dell Computer, Facebook, any number of huge companies started in a garage. So with that, I'll take any questions if there are any.
Questions from the committee? Senator Reswell.
Thank you. We've generally been receptive to increases in the R&D tax credit, but just thinking about the state's revenue picture currently and our inability to really fully fund the essential government services we need to fund, just wonder about the timing, if this is the right time to do this, or should we be waiting until we are in a better, more predictable, sustainable revenue place?
Thank you for that question. It's a very good question and apropos. We had several bills in the committee that wanted tax credits for things. Many of them we killed for just that reason. I think this one we made an exception on because we felt that it's potentially building growth for the future. I mean, our biggest tax is the business profits tax. And if we can get companies to come here and grow, that's going to grow the business profits tax. So I think the thinking in House Ways and Means was that the $3 million was worth the investment.
Thank you. So a little bit later this morning, I think we're hearing another tax credit bill on childcare, which we know from businesses, the lack of access to childcare is limiting businesses' ability to grow. And so I guess that's part of my thinking, and I wonder what you think. Should we be trying to make sure that the businesses that are here can hire the employees they need by increasing capacity for childcare, rather than thinking at the same time of spending $3 million to bring new businesses here that are going to run into the same workforce problems?
Thank you for the question. I think what's interesting is when we look at the full range of bills that we had with tax credits, interestingly enough, obviously we passed the 5 million credit for the child care because we recognized that was an issue. So I think what we were thinking in the House was that we really wanted to do both. We recognized healthcare as a challenge, wanted to give an incentive there, but helping small businesses that could really grow and become large and also bring a higher average annual salary was a good thing. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe those are the two bills that we did allow the tax credit and killed others that for the reason of the concern you brought up before. But we believe that these two merit, and I wouldn't want to see either one of them gone.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Just a quick one. I just want to thank you for taking my question, and I just want to follow up kind of what my colleague said. You know, we're at a time where state revenues are low, and you know, I just don't know that if you know in the fiscal note it says you know the first year it could be 3 million in loss of revenue. Do you have clear economic data that you know spanning over this 5 years that these businesses will come here?
That's predicting the future. That would be tough, but
We've gotten revenues, man.
we've been. So there are other members, I believe, who will be speaking on the growth of this industry and probably could answer that question better than I. But I would say that right now, revenues in the latest revenues that I've looked at for March, they were positive. And that's not including the tax amnesty program. So I think we're at least heading in a direction where we can talk about this when we're not talking about, you know, a huge deficit or a deficit. March looks, you know, pretty good. And April, of course, is when a lot more tax revenue will also come in. So I would be strongly in favor of moving this forward.
Thank you.
Further questions? So I just have a couple. So to your point, March was 32 million above plan. Just for those who don't know that, our revenue that we brought in was for the month was $32 million above what we thought it was going to be.
Right.
So I do think we're starting to see, I wouldn't call 2 points on the scale a trend, but we are seeing it's heading in the right direction. My question would be, well, I think everyone here sees the importance of both the bill we're going to hear later on childcare tax credit as well as the R&D because that's looking future going forward. Would you be opposed to staggering these credits to what implementation dates so that if we were to pass them, they would just be staggered a little bit more so they're not all hitting at the same time?
No, I don't. Let's see. Right now, this one becomes effective.
Right, with this budget
July
cycle.
1st with this budget cycle. No, I wouldn't be against that.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions?
I just wonder if you think that 1 month makes a trend. I mean, I was happy to see March
I'm not complaining.
revenues, but most of that growth was not the business taxes. I mean, what was that, 7 million?
We can save this discussion for executive. How's that?
Okay, but do you think, my question is, because of your experience in predicting the future on Ways and Means, are you confident that 1 month can predict a trend?
I mean, I think, no, the answer to that, 1 month doesn't predict a trend. But I was encouraged that business taxes were also above estimates or plan as well for March. And I think there's a lot of underlying economic, I mean, the current war situation may put a little doubt on some of that, but I don't anticipate that being a long range issue. And a lot of pieces have been put into place to build business growth. So I'm pretty confident that it's well, let me just say, so when we did the planning for the House Ways and Means, how much money was going to come in, we did think that the first half of fiscal year 26 would be tight. But we thought the second half of fiscal year 26 would start to show gains. So it's encouraging that seeing the figures in March. So again, I don't, 1 month doesn't make a trend, but looking at the larger picture, I think I feel confident with it.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Next up is Andrea from New Hampshire Life Sciences.
Morning. Good morning. I think you all have my testimony, so I won't read that directly. I'll speak to it. My name's Andrea Hechevarria. I'm the president and CEO of New Hampshire Life Sciences. Some of you I've met with, some of you I haven't. As just a brief introduction, New Hampshire Life Sciences is a brand new trade association that was formed in 2023 to support the growing sector that the Chair Janigian was speaking to. This is a priority growth sector for the state. A lot of exciting things have been happening in the industry. We've seen the corridor that's expanding in Boston's world-leading life sciences cluster and moving up to New Hampshire in towns like Salem, Londonderry, basically anything Concord on down, the Seacoast in the Upper Valley. There's a lot of biotech and medtech happening. The R&D tax credit is incredibly important to our industry, like any other highly innovative industry. But for us, as you guys know, to get a biotech to market and reimbursable, it's probably 10 to 15 year window. And every dollar counts to do that innovation. What makes New Hampshire's credit unique, and I think tied to our strengths, is that we tie it to manufacturing. We have a real opportunity to make this credit more competitive. One of the reasons we brought forward this issue is because while the state over the last several years has raised the overall cap, it's 7 million compared to the 1 million that started, it hasn't touched that individual entity cap since 2008. So the individual entity cap for the credit is $50,000. And unfortunately, I have to say in 2026 does not get you anywhere. Our credit, unfortunately, also is just not that competitive. But even though it hasn't been as competitive as we'd like, I'd like to answer Senator Fenton's point. The dollars and the economic benefit are there. You should have, and I have it in my folder if you need to, statistics from the Department of Revenue that show this growth. Since the credit's inception in 2008, we've seen over 16 years an annual growth rate of 12.7% in New Hampshire's qualified wages, growing to $765 million, which is the highest qualified wages to be recorded since the credit began. If you were to chart that data from 2008, you're going to see it going like this. So while you can't track the R&D's credits as black and white as maybe some other things, there's a direct linkage to the employment benefit. And I would say I appreciate the revenue challenges our state finds us in, but we must find a way to lean in and incentivize further economic growth at the same time. I would argue that this is, if it's not number one, it's number two of a priority growth industry in the state. There's a ton going on in Keene. There's a ton going on in Hillsborough and Rockingham County. And the data showcases that. We've worked very closely with the State Department of Business and Economic Affairs on issues and policies that we think can further incentivize this. And they have labeled the R&D tax credit as the one that can continue to help our companies here now, but also wave that flag to say, if you're in Massachusetts or you're in New York or you're somewhere else and you want to come into New Hampshire and grow your business here, on top of the New Hampshire advantage that exists today, this credit can be very helpful. So I will close just by saying this is a growing sector. Happy to answer any questions about it. We represent 60 plus companies today. That includes the largest life science employers in the state, but also early stage companies you've never heard of. And the issue, the number one issue with this credit is it's so popular that if a company goes in and says, I want the $50,000 credit, they're lucky if they get half of that. So we've got to find a way to make this a little bit more competitive. And I think on top of the New Hampshire advantage that exists now, this would be a great policy incentive to further growth of this sector.
Questions from the committee? I just want to read your statement you made last. I think every time in the 10 years I've been in the legislature, we've raised this number. It's always hit its cap, and there's still the people who are eligible for the credit only get a portion, a prorated portion of the cap. Is that correct?
Correct. But this is the first time we're raising both caps. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great. Seeing no questions, thank you very much.
And I'd like, if you want, I'm going to pass these out. This is good. Okay, perfect.
Take care of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Next up is David Peters from Elliott Controls.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman Lang and other members of the committee. My name is David Peters, president of Elliott Controls, a small family business in Amherst, New Hampshire, and I'm in favor of increasing the R&D tax credit because it will foster a statewide economy of innovation. I really do believe that. Why that increase matters right now is intense global competition to perform that innovation elsewhere and at lower cost. Now, why this increase matters to me is I'm in my first year of running a small business, and call me naive, but I'm actually looking forward to making a profit and paying taxes. I'm excited about that. So I can't give you economic evidence, but I will give you anecdotal evidence of what's happening with my company and how it's related to this R&D tax credit. We provide building automation systems to reduce energy consumption and create a high performance building for some of the most complex, high cost R&D manufacturing corporations who are doing business in New Hampshire. And one example is my newest customer, which is based in the Middle East. They started with a new lab in Massachusetts a couple years ago. And notably, when the time came to decide where their first R&D manufacturing facility should be, they chose New Hampshire. And I believe that's a common thread going on in industry as a whole right now. Two of the biggest reasons that people are looking to start up in New Hampshire or to relocate to New Hampshire are the lower costs of available real estate and low regulatory burden for research. Now, here's the problem. These people who are going to benefit from this R&D tax credit, my potential future clients, can literally stand up a manufacturing facility and do this research anywhere on the planet. So they're looking for a competitive advantage to be here and to stay here while they're going through multiple years, maybe 5-10 years of heavy losses, dumping money into an idea before they have approval or even a marketable product. And when you consider that these people are going to be operating under a loss for 5 or 10 years, any little bit of help that we can give them, I believe, is going to pay itself off thousands of times over in future dividends. So the R&D tax credit, I believe, will excite many small startups. And the one I'm supporting, for example, literally just started a 2,000 square foot lab in a former auto body shop. You wouldn't even know it's there. But they're on the leading edge of healthcare science. They have less than 20 employees in the United States, only 3 full-time in New Hampshire right now. Now, here's where it gets fun. 2 weeks ago, the CEO of the company flew over from the Middle East and had a meeting with me about the future of his company. And they're developing a method of destroying solid cancer tumors with radioactive seeds. So we're talking about both medtech, advanced manufacturing, and physiology and nuclear science in one little package. Here's the problem. They're looking for another facility that they can scale up immediately on a rapid time frame. And we had to discuss where we're going to do that. They said, David, we want you to come with us. And they're looking at Indiana, Ohio, Florida to build this facility. And I said, no, I want you to stay in New Hampshire with me. So that immediately led to a conversation with the governor's office, connected him to the BEA. I've got a mentor in the BEA's office now to hold on to this CEO and guide him into planning for long-term development in New Hampshire. If they're successful, they're going to stay here, they're going to hire more people, and that's going to benefit thousands of smaller downstream companies like mine. What was interesting was, as soon as he mentioned Indiana, I said, but we have an R&D tax credit. Immediately stopped the conversation. And he said, tell me more about the R&D tax credit. Well, I don't even know anything about it. All I knew was the conversation changed immediately when I mentioned House Bill 1102. And he said, tell me more. I connected him with the BEA, and now it's out of my hands. But this is the anecdotal evidence that I believe is the economic power of the message that we will send if we pass this bill.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our last speaker is Natch. Or Nate. How do we say your name?
Nature's like nature.
All right.
It's all right. You'll see me a lot, so we'll get it right eventually.
He's so fit you work for the Venus.
Well, we'll also figure out where I work for too. Nate Grays for the BIA, the State Chamber of Commerce, and the State Manufacturing Association. We support this legislation. You've already heard from a number of our members today about why it's important to them and their industries. I would just reemphasize that. Believe that Senator Lang asked a question about, or proposed a solution about staggering tax credits. Given budget realities, the risk of putting myself out on a plank here, I think that might be a reasonable thing to do. I think that given that this this bill before you does two different things. One, it raises the per business cap and also raises the overall cap. It might be possible for you to act on the per business cap and have that go into effect sooner, so we can incentivize some other new businesses to come to New Hampshire, as well as incentivize businesses in New Hampshire to expand, because that wouldn't hit the overall revenue number, where we're asking for an additional $3 million. But that could be something that happens as part of the next budget cycle. And hopefully no one behind me is knives out at this moment in time.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to testify in House Bill 1102? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on House Bill 1102 and give us just a couple minutes to reset. Sonia? We'll get an open a public hearing on House Bill 1597. Recognize the prime sponsor, Representative Janigian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am Representative John Janigian from Rockingham District 25, which is Salem. And this particular bill, 1597, basically what its sole purpose was to increase, if you're a business buying equipment, taking a deduction, a 179, Section 179 IRC deduction. Right now, the federal code allows up to $2.5 million. Well, lets you take up to $2.5 million of that in the first year. Currently in New Hampshire, that limit is $500,000, and then you would have to depreciate the rest of it over a time period. So in total, when you look at the total, I guess, income coming in from the business profits tax, over time, this bill causes no change in how much comes in. The difference is that this bill would encourage more investment in New Hampshire by New Hampshire businesses, or by businesses operating in New Hampshire, to give them up to 2.5 million credit in that first year on equipment purchased. Let's see. Yeah, I guess that's about it. Pretty straightforward. Any questions?
Questions from the committee? So John, as I understand it, what you're saying is that if I have a $5 million expenditure in the first year, I'd be able to take a 2.5 versus right now I would only take a 500,000.
Right.
That I'd be able to depreciate. I'd be able to take an immediate credit over 50% of the cost of that off my business profits tax. And then going forward, what does it look like? It is still 2.5 per year. So then instead of 2 years, instead of a 10-year span to get the deduction with depreciation, it would only take 2 years.
That is a really good question. That isn't my understanding. My understanding is you'd have to depreciate the rest of it, but I could be wrong. I don't know if someone from DRA is here and could answer that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for taking my question. I'm just looking at the fiscal note and seeing that the DRA's modeling determined there could be a fiscal impact based on 2023 data of over $8 million. And just wondering what your thoughts are about that, given, as we've discussed, uncertain revenue pictures, uncertain economy. I mean, I'm assuming if we pass this bill, we, in this body, get a review by finance.
Correct. It's an FN, so it'd go to finance.
It may not have in that house. But
Yeah, I mean, one thing that could be potentially done with this is changing the effective date. Because as I'm looking at it now, the effective date is 60 days after passage. Maybe this should be pushed to 2027.
the next budget.
Yeah, that way, if we see that, it's going to give us more time to see what's happening. And at that time, because we want to, again, the theme of all this is to encourage more business growth and thus collect more in business profits tax and business enterprise tax, but also seeing growth in New Hampshire. So I guess that would be my answer. I share that concern. Obviously, when we put this in, it was September of last year. And while our crystal ball is pretty good, it's a little cloudy from time to time. So I would say maybe changing the effective date to the next budget cycle could be an answer to that.
Thanks. Would you consider some contingency revenue trigger language that if revenues came in X% above plan, this would go into effect in addition to pushing out the effective date? Because $8 million a year looks like a big hit.
Right. I mean, the difference would be if the depreciation had to stay in place. If this didn't pass, then that same 8 million is taken, but it's over time. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. I mean, the problem with the trigger is, what is the trigger? Is it after 1 year, we're happy with it, after 6 months? I think my preference would be, whatever the committee decides, my preference would be to just set a date in the next budget cycle.
Thank you.
See how things are going.
Any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Next up is Greg Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Greg Moore, Regional Director with AFP, Americans for Prosperity, and here today to testify in support of House Bill 1597. I'm going to do it for 3 reasons. First and foremost, the benefit to this to small businesses. Second, the benefit to state competitiveness. And then thirdly, the benefit long-term for the job of people like you in budget writing committees. And then I'll talk a little bit about the history. The first part is small businesses, value of money. Making numbers work is an important thing for small businesses, and giving them the tools to make those decisions as quickly as possible is a value. I don't want to go too far down the road because I know John Reynolds from NFIB will be speaking after me, and he can speak. He's probably speaking exclusively about the impact of small businesses, so I don't want to be repetitive or steal his thunder. The value of competitiveness is important. According to the Tax Foundation, 33 states across the country, which means 33 of our 49 competitive states, have conformity to federal tax law. That means when the feds change Section 179, their tax policy changes to 179. And we are in competition with them for employers. Now, I'm not necessarily concerned about someone picking New Hampshire over another state over this policy, because if you read the fiscal note, there's really no net impact on this policy. And they say in the second to last paragraph that it's more of a timing issue. And yes, while you will take a hit in the first year, of potentially as much as $8.3 million. Over the long arc of it, it's not a net reduction of your taxes. It's more of a timing issue. What I'd be more concerned about is a business running the numbers, a business that does business in multiple states running the numbers and saying it makes more sense to make a capital investment in another state that allows us to take this immediately as opposed to doing it in New Hampshire. And where that capital investment flows, business activity and jobs also flow. So that'd be my greater concern from a competitiveness standpoint. Thirdly, as far as a benefit for you all who are tax writers, passing this removes some of the cyclicality of doing planning long term. Oftentimes, people are going to make major capital investments when the economy is good, and they're not probably going to be making major capital investments when the economy is bad. The good news is by letting them write those investments off quickly, you're getting that off the books in good times, and you're not stretching that out to the point where they're still able to take those deductions in bad times. And so that's the time when the state most needs money, is when the economy is in a downturn, and yet you're stretching out the purchase of these over that extended period of time. A little bit about the history of this. I don't know, Senator Murphy might have been in House Ways and Means in the time, but as long back as I can remember, and Senator Rosenwald knows that goes back a while around this building, it was $100,000 at the state level and $500,000 at the federal level. In 2016, we passed a law that brought conformity. So that had the effect of bringing our 179 deduction from 100,000 up to 500,000. Well, sure as you can imagine, a year and a half later, the feds passed the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which lifted that from 500,000 to 1.25 million. Then in 2019, in the budget, we decoupled from the federal, put the cap back at $500,000. And now, obviously, with the, OBBA, Working Families Tax Cut, whatever we're calling, what passed last year, it's jumped that up to 2.5 million. So that delta is starting to get pretty significant in terms of where we are and where the feds are. So allowing some more harmony makes it easier when businesses are asking the same accountant to do their federal taxes as their state taxes. But I want to point out one important factor is that in the recently passed federal legislation, they put in an inflation indexer in it. So should you pass this bill, it will already be behind the federal limit. So, and I understand the DRA. There was another bill that went to the House committee that would have brought conformity to it. And just reading the fiscal note, it's obvious DRA does not want conformity. They want to put hard limits into the statutes. And that's fine in terms of it, but I think it's important to understand that even with this bill, we're not going to be up to where the feds are going to be. So I'd like to point that out for the committees to understand is that much like some of the other things that you guys have done that have indexed things like filing thresholds, et cetera, to inflation, this 179 deduction is now indexed for inflation. So happy to take any questions from the committee.
I'm not sure I want conformity given the deficit that the federal budget runs, but but thank you very much for that. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none.
Thank you.
And our last speaker is John Reynolds. Actually, it's not going to be the last speaker. So I'm going to have DRA to come up.
Thank you, Chairman Lang and members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to testify today. My name is John Reynolds. I'm the state director for NFIB in New Hampshire. We represent about 1,700 small businesses across the state in all industries, but mostly very small, with 90% of our members having fewer than 20 employees. Thank you to the committee for considering this bill. Thank you to Chair Janigian for sponsoring it. We think that there's no better tool for spurring small business investment and growth in the state than Section 179. Study after study, Tax Foundation, American Economic Journal, and many others has found over decades of research that Section 179, immediate expensing, substantially boosts capital investment, increases employment, elicits a strong response from small and medium-sized businesses, and raises wages by increasing demand for labor. And I can just give you a couple examples of what this means for our members, for small businesses. We had after the 2017 federal tax bill, we had a member who services, installs, and repairs large electric motors, so everything from industrial heaters to snowmaking turbines, snowmaking machines. He was able to buy new equipment. And then because he could immediately expense that investment, he turned around and was able to pay for training for his employees to operate that equipment. He was able to, in conjunction with other changes at the federal level, able to start a 401k program for his employees, and he can continue to invest and grow his business. Same thing for a well driller, right? What do you need a well driller for? Pretty much everything. If you want houses, if you want schools, if you want commercial businesses, you need water. We had a well driller was able to buy a new rig, replace an old rig. Those rigs can run as much as $1 million easily. So this will enable businesses like that to do more, to hire more people, to expand, to grow, and hopefully, well, not hopefully, it will boost tax revenue, right? If you're hiring people, if you're paying them more, that boosts the BET revenue. If you're expanding, that's going to boost BPT revenue. So we think that this is just a win-win, common sense proposal. To your question, Chairman Lang, that you'd, I think, asked at the outset, yes, amounts that exceed the immediate deduction limit can be depreciated in future years according to the schedule. And then I also just wanted to note that New Hampshire and Connecticut are the only two states that did not conform to the federal Section 179 limit after the 2017 tax bill. So everybody else did it. My mom always said, well, if everybody was jumping off a bridge, would you? But in this case, yeah, I would jump off the bridge. So.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask DRA to come up. They didn't sign up, but I'm sure we have questions for them.
Good morning. For the record, Jennifer Ramsey, Tax Policy Counsel with the Department of Revenue Administration. How can I help?
Great. Questions from the committee for DRA. So I guess the question I had was the first one was a $5 million investment made. Would that be, instead of under current law, that would be spread out at $500,000 per year for the deduction? Is that how that would play out, or?
So the play between the 179 deduction and just regular depreciation is that typically a capital asset is depreciated over the useful life of the asset. So the 179 deduction allows for acceleration of that depreciation into the year that the asset is placed or is placed in service. The investment is made, I should say. What isn't taken in the first year of investment then would be taken over the useful life. So there's not a fixed 10-year limit, but Representative Janigian is right. It moves from regular depreciation on a tax return to a 179 deduction on a tax return, if that answers your question.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Cindy?
So Representative Janigian suggested we change the effective date. Would we also need to change the date on line 6 of the bill about when the property is placed into service?
Yeah, that would be the operative date that would tell us which tax year to apply the change to. So the effective date could remain actually 60 days after passage, as long as it was clear which tax year the change applied to. So that would, you're correct, Senator, that would be the appropriate date to change.
Okay, that's the place to change the date.
So, talking along, we've gotten a lot of spending bills, for lack of a better phrase, or bills that are moving tax credits and those kind of things. If we were to smooth this out and bring up the amount that they can take in that year, would that smooth out tax revenues to make it smoother? So again, if I was to do something that says we're going to increase it by 500,000 every biennium until we reach 2.5 million.
Yeah.
Would that smooth out? Would that make it easier for the department, harder for the department? Would it make it better for revenues, worse for revenues?
It would slow down the acceleration, if that makes sense. So if the acceleration of the depreciation were to jump from our current state law of 500,000 to 2.5 million, in that next few years, you might see a decrease in business profits tax. We calculated that it could be as a maximum of 8.3, but we know it will actually be less than that because some of what's not taken up front will then move to the depreciation line. But if you were to stagger in the increases, then yes, it would spread out the effect of the change in the business profits tax revenue.
Thank you. Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to testify on House Bill 1597? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on House Bill 1597. Give us a moment to reset. We'll move on to our last bill of the day. Yep. Tanya. And if Rep. Katab want to take the seat, as soon as we get everybody back, we're just going to give a couple minutes for a quick bio break, and then they'll come back.
More speakers than
Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and begin. Just to let everybody know, we have 4 speakers currently signed up for this bill. So we're on time. Yeah. We'll go ahead and open a public hearing on House Bill 1433 and recognize the prime spotlight, Representative Katab.
Thank you, Senator Ling and members of the Senate Ways and Means Committee. For the record, I'm Caitlin Kutab. I represent Rockingham District 17, the town of Windham. The availability of reliable childcare is really crucial for parents in New Hampshire to remain in the workforce and to attract businesses to our state. And there's currently a critical shortage of childcare facilities in New Hampshire that's resulted in an estimated 12-month wait list for openings. Addressing this issue is really essential for maintaining our state's economic competitiveness. And this bill aims to increase the availability and supply of childcare by offering a tax credit incentive to businesses. It introduces a business tax credit for businesses that establish new childcare seats or expand existing ones by at least 12 seats after January 1st, 2027. Businesses can claim a tax credit equal to 50% of qualifying expenditures against its business profit tax, the business enterprise tax, or a combination of both. Qualifying expenses include capital investments such as acquisition, construction, renovation, or expansion of the facilities, as well as operational costs for the first 2 years. For new programs and for increased costs for programs relative to a 2-year baseline. The credits can be carried forward for up to 4 years, but they're not refundable. The aggregate of the tax credits for all taxpayers shall not exceed $5 million in any fiscal year, and this does not apply until tax periods ending on or after December 31st, 2027. So this wouldn't apply until our next budget cycle. The applications will be processed on a first come, first served basis. And any applications received in excess of the $5 million won't be eligible for a credit in that fiscal year, but can be carried forward to the next year and shall be given a priority. I think it's really important that we make this investment in childcare to alleviate the critical shortage in our state, and that it's important that we do so in order to remain competitive and to foster economic growth, ultimately attracting more businesses to our state. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions from committee members? Senator Roosevelt.
Thank you. Thank you for introducing this bill. I'm sure you're aware that we are missing 9,000 licensed childcare spots.
Yes, yeah, we have, yep, and it's causing that big shortage is causing many areas to have up to a 12-month wait list, and that's really difficult because before you're pregnant, basically you'd need to sign up in some areas for childcare. So it's really problematic.
Could I follow up? Thank you. There was a recent study that came out that indicated childcare workers are the second lowest paid group of employees in New Hampshire. And I don't know what the first is. I can't even imagine. But will this bill help improve the compensation of childcare workers?
So this bill, that's a great question. This bill doesn't directly talk to the compensation of the childcare workers. Although I think that many businesses are realizing that in order to, stay afloat and stay in business so that they don't have the childcare workers leaving, that they do need to make that investment and pay their childcare workers a little bit of better wages. So I think at least when they're getting started, they'll get a little bit of a credit here, and hopefully that will help them to be able to pay them better.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So thank you for bringing the bill. I recognize that not only is it bipartisan, it's bicameral. We have Republicans and Democrats from both bodies as sponsors of this bill. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is Andrea from New Hampshire Life Sciences.
Hi again. Just wanted to offer my testimony in support of this tax credit. In my written testimony, you'll see that many of our companies, this is number one issue. Housing and workforce and childcare go hand in hand. Many of our companies, some of the largest manufacturers in our membership, are stating that their employees are driving up to an hour to get adequate child care. So we are very supportive of this bill, primarily because of its flexibility, allows the employer to find a solution that works for him. But we view these things hand in hand. And I think just to connect an earlier comment made when we were talking about the R&D credit, I don't think this is a one or the other. I think we look at these together, because the child care tax credit with that employment growth allows for the employer to find flexible solutions, while the R&D credit incentivizes that future growth. So I think that you look at these in tandem, one that's solving a challenge right now impacting our workforce, and one on the other hand that is forward thinking. So this has been very stressful, and I would just say from a personal standpoint, something I've experienced here in New Hampshire. I have 2 small children, and I actually used to live in a big city environment where this is very typical, right? You have getting on a child care list the day you find out that you're pregnant. And when I moved back to New Hampshire, I was very shocked to find that this was happening here in this state. And when our children were toddlers, it was at the 11th hour that we found them child care. So understand the stress of it, and something that I'm happy to work with this committee on, but very important to the future growth of our companies here in the state.
Thank you. Any questions for Andrea? Seeing none, thank you. Next up is Deitch.
Thank you, Nate Grace, for the BIA. We are supportive of this bill. As was mentioned, the wait lists throughout the state is about 12 months. We asked Brian Gottlob about, given the data we have available, about how many people are out of the workforce who could be working due to staying at home and caring for children. And his estimate was somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000, which is about 1% of the workforce here in the state of New Hampshire that are currently working. The way this credit is designed, it's an incentive to increase supply. It may have knock-on effects for actual pay for workers as well, based on the flexibility that it provides, because it would allow an employer to open an on-site childcare facility and get a credit. It would allow them to partner with a existing provider in the community to expand their existing operation in some form or fashion. And part of that would increase the actual, by increasing the supply, we increase the number of children in the programs. And we know there's an economy of scale there that may help to some degree with pay. I'm not saying it's, the only option here for increasing pay, but it may in some form or fashion have some impact there. And this is really designed, for a variety of businesses, whether it's a philanthropic investment, whether it's more targeted towards business investing in their childcare for their own employees. It provides a lot of flexibility. And I just did want to mention one just other data point, which is typically what we'd see funded through this. We would expect to see center-based programs, and those typically take about 2 to 3 years from initial decision to I want to open one of those to site selection to going through permitting to getting actual construction done. So we'd probably see the effect here about 2 years out from passage is our estimate. I'm happy to take any questions the committee may have.
Questions from the committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for taking my question. So you made a statement that, and I support the bill. I'm a co-sponsor of the bill, and I do understand there's a need for child care. I'd like to see parents spend more time with their kids, not less. So you made a statement about 5 to 10,000 people are not in the workforce that are. So I just think, don't you think that we need to look at the whole picture when it comes to our state and proceed with caution? We don't want to force all of the people out of the workforce and force all kids into childcare, right?
I agree.
We want to provide an opportunity for parents that need to work or want to work, but I don't think that the focus should be on just the workforce. We need to look at the whole family. Would you agree?
I agree completely, Senator. I brought that point up because Senator Rosenwald pointed out our estimate from New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute is about 9,000 seats short of demand. We have a pretty broad range of how many people might go back in the workforce because there are plenty of families who want to be, plenty of parents who want to be stay-at-home parents. If I had the choice, I would be, but unfortunately, I have to pay for things. So.
I just wanted to make sure that we consider those families in these conversations
Absolutely.
too. Thank you.
Further questions from the committee?
Quick one. Good to see you. Thank you for taking our questions.
Of course.
Any concern that we're missing our truly small businesses in this bill where they can't afford this large upfront cost, they can't afford this large capital investment, they can't afford to build these centers, and they don't have the opportunity now that these larger businesses do?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Senator. In thinking through this bill and providing feedback to the prime sponsor, our focus was really on how to maximize the number of seats we could create. I do think you'll see future legislation that we'll be supporting to work on incentivizing smaller businesses to make investments. We just didn't quite have the data there to say, are there small businesses that will make the kind of investments that will create seats and help alleviate the pressure on the supply side. And that's really what we're trying to focus here with this credit.
Just a quick follow-up.
Good.
And you and I are usually pretty in sync on this stuff. A lot of small businesses are barely struggling to stay in business. And I think it's difficult to say, hey, well, if you give us some money, we'll try and create some childcare seats for you when they're barely struggling right now. So I think we have to really look at that and say, how do we help these small businesses and get them actually affordable childcare?
Yes, I agree. As you point out, they simply don't have the capital to make this investment. But the great thing about this tax credit and that we expect to see is that businesses are probably going to partner with childcare providers already in their community to expand, and those seats will be open to everyone, including the employees of small businesses. Because simply put, if you wanted to open a childcare facility, it's a incredibly complex licensing scheme that requires about 60 days to get approvals. Plus, you have to have all of the right equipment, all of the right training, staff with the right training. It's really not something that businesses that aren't in the business of childcare, once they start looking into it, are actually interested in doing. They realize partnering with people who actually have that background is a better option. And when they do that, they typically do so through the community investment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing them. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up is Trina from New Futures.
You're in.
And we have one more speaker after that.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Lang and committee members, for the opportunity to speak in support of HB 1433. I am Trina Engelfinger, and I am the Early Care and Education Policy Director at New Futures. And my work focuses on examining the strengths and challenges in our childcare landscape. And I can speak to the fact that one of the greatest challenges right now in our state is that there are not enough childcare slots to meet family demand. As Senator Rosenwald noted, we are short more than 9,000 childcare slots in New Hampshire, and that is if our childcare businesses were operating at 100% capacity. We're hearing about wait lists that would fill some centers 2 and 3 times over if they were accommodated. And also the number of childcare programs in the state has declined since COVID, and that has left some communities without access to childcare. We're seeing this in rural areas, but also increasingly in small municipalities. So childcare shortages are depressing workforce participation. And I included with my written testimony a report from the New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute that indicates that childcare shortages are actually costing the state between $150 and $250 million per year. And we're starting to see that those shortages are actually affecting New Hampshire's ability to attract and retain a young workforce. I think Stay Work Play is here today, but a survey that they conducted recently indicates that childcare availability is one of the biggest concerns for young workforce members in New Hampshire. So New Hampshire needs some solutions to this problem. HB 1433 directly addresses this problem. It helps businesses with their own choices to invest in building childcare capacity, and New Futures strongly supports the bill. I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Trina.
Thank you.
And our last speaker is Corinne from Stay Work Play.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me and for being open to this conversation. For the record, I'm Corinne Benfield. I'm the Executive Director of Stay Work Play New Hampshire, here representing the young people of New Hampshire, 18 to 40. Our organization is hyper-focused on attracting and retaining our young, talented workforce that we so desperately need to build in this state. I will be brief, just tangentially to the letter submitted to this committee. And as Trina mentioned, childcare is one of the top concerns that we're hearing about from our young audience. It consistently comes up as one of the top pain points young families and young people who are not even parents yet are citing as pain points when they're deciding whether to live in New Hampshire long term. We see this trend also supported in our quality of life survey data, citing 85% of our respondents citing childcare access and affordability as worse in New Hampshire than other states. This is a very clear signal of risk and risk in talent retention. But also, I just wanted to bring up that this is not just a young person issue. There are ripple effects felt throughout demographics and also throughout industries. We consistently hear from businesses who support Stay Work Play and young workforce retention that they are interested in being part of the solution to addressing childcare, as they consistently hear about the obstacles that their young talent are facing. So for those reasons, we certainly support HB 1433. And I think this is also a very important conversation to have at this table, because it does send a broader signal to young people and to our talented workforce that really just sends the message that our state does see childcare as an essential infrastructure tied directly to their quality of life, their workforce participation, economic competitiveness, as well as community health. So this is a future-focused policy that we support, and for these reasons, we respectfully urge you all to recommend HB 1433 as ought to pass. So thank you. I'm happy to take questions as well.
Questions for Corinne? Seeing none. Thank you,
Fabulous.
Corinne.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on House Bill 1433? Step on up. DRA?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, for the record, Jennifer Ramsey, Tax Policy Counselor for the Department of Revenue Administration. I thought I signed up on the list, but if I signed up on the wrong one, I apologize.
I don't know if you were there. You just didn't check whether you were speaking or not.
Ah, okay, very good. I'm a broken record this session, but I wanted to thank the sponsor of the bill. The original bill, as it was drafted, had some difficulties of implementation for us, but all of those have been corrected. One of the changes in the amendment, though, was to add a tax cap to this tax credit, which requires us to stand up an application process. We can do all of that with existing staff and existing personnel, existing systems. What we cannot do is reprogram our software. That has to be done by our vendor. We have obtained a cost for that. It's $40,000. You will see that in the fiscal note, but there's not currently appropriation in language in the bill for that amount. And so I'm hopeful that you all would consider adding that language.
Thank you. Questions for DRA? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to testify on 1433? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on House Bill 1433. We're going to take a 10-minute recess. We are going to come back and do an executive session. But we're going to take a 10-minute break and we'll be back.
What have you done?
I don't know yet. I got to talk to my colleagues. My intention is to go back a bunch of I'll talk about it when I come back. Yeah, let's talk about it when I come back. All right, guys. Sonia, that's for you? Yep, I'll get it.
Light is.
Okay.
Move exec.
Out of recess, and Senator Murphy's moved that we go into executive session. Is there second by Senator Rosenwald? All those in favor of executive session signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. We are now in executive session. First bill I'd like to take up is House Bill 1090, and I recognize Senator Murphy for a motion.
I move ITL.
It's been moved by Senator Murphy, seconded by Senator Fenton, ITL on House Bill 1090. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of ITL signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it.
Move
And
consent.
ITL. Senator Murphy moves consent. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Fenton. All those in favor of consent signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and this will be on consent. Senator Murphy, I'll ask you to take it out.
Yep.
Let's take up the last bill we just heard, 1433, and I recognize Senator Rosenwald for a motion.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move to pass.
Been moved by Senator Rosenwald, ought to pass, second by Senator Sullivan. Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1433? Seeing none, all those in favor of House Bill 1433 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Is there a motion for consent?
Moved.
It's been moved by Senator Rosenwald, seconded by Senator Sullivan for consent. All those in favor of consent signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. It is on consent. Senator Sullivan, would you take this one out? I know you didn't. Next order of business we'll take up is 1194.
Move all to pass.
The bill's been moved ought to pass, and it's by Senator Murphy, seconded by Senator Fenton. I'm going to move an amendment number 1301. And so I moved it's been seconded by Senator Fenton. Just real quick, remember, this is the amendment that was agreed upon by both the all of the industry and the original sponsors to stretch it out from a 7-year plan, which would have greater impact and volatility to the state revenues, to a 10-year plan to smooth that out. So first order of business is the amendment. All those in favor of Amendment 1301 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Amendment 1301 is adopted. I'll also move Amendment 1237 and seconded by Senator Rosenwald. Remember, this is the amendment that was requested by both Lottery and the AG due to an error when I passed House Bill 480 a while back. We didn't include this in the exempt statutes for penalties, the sports betting. So all those in favor of Amendment 1237S signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. I'm going to ask we make one quick committee amendment to everything that's now been adopted. We have Section 1 and Section 2 in the bill, but they need different implementation dates to give Department of Insurance a little bit of time. So I'm going to ask that we, under the effective date, we change Section 1 to be effective 60 days upon passage and Section 2 to be upon passage. And that'll be a committee amendment. So Section 1, which is the first amendment we passed, to be 60 days upon passage, was in alignment with what was in the amendment, but Section 2 should be upon passage,
Oh, so as they're presented.
as they were presented, right?
I'll second that amendment.
So, all those in favor of the amendment as committee amendment as identified, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Now we're on OTPA of House Bill 1194. Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1194 as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Do I have a motion for consent?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded to go to consent. All those in favor of consent will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, and it is on consent, and I'll take it out. Last bill we'll be taking up today in executive session is 1197, which is the, 1597. And I'll make a motion of ought to pass, and I do have an amendment that I'm going to offer. Been moved by Senator Lang, seconded by Senator Rosenwald. I'm going to ask for a committee amendment. And I think the issue here is how fast we're going to implement and jump from 500 to 2.5 million and how that's going to hurt the fixing our revenues and making sure we have straight revenues. So what I'm going to ask for is on line 7. So we're going to start right at line 7. We're going to strike the 2.5 million and make that 1 million. However, we're going to add to that, and each of the following biennium shall increase by 500K until it reaches 2.5 million. Is everyone clear what I'm asking as a committee amendment? So this will spread it out. So in the next budget year, it'll jump from 500,000 to 1 million. And then every biennium after that will increase that deduction by 500K so that we can manage it within our revenue streams. Does that make sense to everybody? Great. Sonia, I'll give you the exact language that's written on the amendment. So, and that'll be a committee amendment. So all those in favor of the committee amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is adopted. We're now on auto pass as amended in the committee. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the bill as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Auto pass as amended is adopted. It's been moved by Senator Fenton for consent, seconded by Senator Murphy. All those in favor of consent signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. It is on consent, and Senator Fenton, I'll let you take that one out. Is there any further business to come before the committee? We are not going to take up the R&D tax credit. We're going to be discussing that one a little while longer. With that, I entertain a motion to come out of executive session. So, wait, before we do that, Sonia, anything you're missing you need from me? Great. All those, I make a motion to come out of executive.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to moved by Senator Lang, second by Senator Roosevelt, come out of executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. And the committee is adjourned.
Executive session.
Thank you.
Love it when everything goes on consent.
Wow, can't control that.